Hi there, this is Billie from the Modern Divorce Podcast, joined today by the incredible Wendi Jensen. Wendi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. So you are working on some really interesting things, and today we're going to talk about deprogramming, which is so relevant for many people going through divorce. But first, can you talk to me about your background and how you got into this?
Sure. I was raised in the LDS Church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is what they prefer for it to be called. But I always knew it as the Mormons. I was a Mormon, and I was taught to be a Mormon girl. And so I lived that religion to its fullest. I had 5 children. I got married at 18, had children right away, and raised my kids under that, all of that theology that really was a frightening experience for me, because we're taught if our children don't align with the gospel and believe in it, then we'll lose them in the next life. And so I became a mom with her hair on fire, trying to control her children and make sure they don't make any poor choices so that I could be with them in the next life. And so that's part of the religious training that I was imposing on my children, because that's what I grew up with, 7 generations of this theology. And so everybody in my world was the same belief. And, I was pretty insulated, even though I went to school and I interacted with people who were not of my faith, but we always saw ourselves exclusive from them. And so
now you work mainly with women who are leaving religious cultures, but are you a psychologist or a life coach? Like, what is your role?
Well, I am a life coach.
Okay.
And the way that I started I started also in the energy healing field, understanding energy psychology and being able to help people process trauma. But I was involved in that, trying to heal my own marriage and my own life situation for probably 13 years before I woke up, understanding that my religion was a lot of the reason that I wasn't able to show up fully in my life. And so in that space, when I woke up, it was such a challenge, even for me, who had already developed the skills, already had a tremendous deep skill set to be able to process the trauma. And it set me back so far. And it was such an emotional breakdown that I thought, man, how could I help other people who are going through this? I've got to find a way to heal myself and to find those avenues of strengthening and empowering myself so that I could help those other women and men at the exit gate who are leaving. It's one thing to leave, and it's another thing to start deconstructing. And it's like almost a secondary complex trauma layered on the trauma of being raised in the religion, because now you're being shunned. We were taught in the religion that people who leave are deceived or lost or wanting to sin or weak, or there's no other reason to leave other than you've been deceived. And so now we're out of the community and we lose our dignity, and that was our stability in every aspect of our life. And so it just breaks down because it affected every aspect of our life. When we leave, it's like every aspect of our life has to be reconciled.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You're not just losing, yes, your religion or your spouse, you're losing your life that you have to rebuild. But let's back up. So what took you from being the devout mother of 5 to leaving the church?
Well, in the energy healing world, I use the tapping and processing past emotions. And I wanted to write a book that would help people who would like to troubleshoot their own issues and ask deep penetrating questions to be able to understand their own psyche. So I wrote a book, I wish I had a copy in here with me, called The Healing Questions Guide. And it's basically using your body and the symptoms in your body to understand what beliefs you have made about yourself in the world that are creating a strain on your whole body economy, your whole constitution, and how to troubleshoot that and realign it with something that's a lot more loving, more self-accepting. And so at the end of this book, I realized that the main thing that people struggle with is contempt against themselves. And I asked myself the question, what source in my life has caused me to develop contempt against myself?
Sure.
And the answer came, it is your religion.
Yeah.
And I
So
thought, oh,
yeah. Let's back up even further. Why were you drawn to this healing? Why were you learning about trauma? Like why did you want to write a book? Most LDS women are taught to find total joy and contentment in your family. Why were you even going outside that?
very good question. For me, it was I was doing everything I was told to do. I was extraordinarily obedient. Like I was the one that was doing all the things, yet my marriage was falling apart and I wasn't happy.
Got it.
And so I thought there has to be something more. And so I read a book called Remembering Wholeness, and it taught you a little bit about what's going on inside and how your inner world creates your outer world. And I got fascinated with that because I needed to heal my marriage. And
Yeah,
so as I went further into that, I realized that the matrix of my mind was really distorted.
sure.
And so I started healing myself. And then I started, including my husband in some of these things. But it was kind of a fringy in the religion in that
Sure.
it's not anything, it doesn't align with just say your prayers, read your scriptures, be more Christ-like, attend the temple. They're a stringent list of to-dos and you'll be happy. This was outside of that. This is deep psychology. This is processing inner wounds and inner child situations. And
Right.
so when I started
Witchcraft,
to
really.
understand that, I realized, no, there's so much more to this.
Okay, so did it heal your family, your marriage?
Well, when my husband was open to doing his own processing, it takes a lot of trust to be with a facilitator. My first facilitator just offered so much safety and trust that I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to provide that for other people to process very vulnerable emotions. And so, because of the past, our past, we had a hard time establishing a trust with me using my own skills and the things that I was learning. And so it was kind of a minimal transition for him, but it caused me it really kind of catapulted me on my growth trajectory. And basically it just came to the point where we weren't resonating, we weren't that compatible. We got married only 3.5 months after we met. We were engaged, and then we got married. So it was a 6 month before I met him and we got married. And so I was very underdeveloped, not ready for all of this. And now I'm learning all of these skills. And so it came to the point is, are we compatible? But that wasn't even the question, because in the religion, if you destroy the marriage, then you also it will affect your afterlife
Yeah.
family. And so you feel responsible to make it happen and work no matter what. And then after I lost the religion, then I realized, you know what, if we can't resolve some of the things in our relationship, then we need to honor each other and move on. And so we had an amicable divorce. And we still to this day, we look out for each other and we care about each other. But we just knew that we had raised 5 children together and we really just weren't a compatible couple.
Wow. That's really interesting. Because I think this happens a lot. I have somebody who came to see me recently who, she and her husband were both heavy drinkers, and she recognized that she was an alcoholic. And so she got clean and she went to AA, and he didn't stop drinking. And that was the catalyst that broke them. Or I have people come to see me and one person leaves the religion, and that's the catalyst that breaks the marriage. And then I see things the other way as well, where the marriage breaks and then the religion breaks. But either way, you have to deconstruct your wounds and rebuild your life. So what are some tips that you can give the listeners on how to do that?
Well, I think for specifically for LDS women, or anybody going through a big life transition, there comes a time when you have to observe how much time and energy and effort that you're putting into the relationship or into the religion. For an LDS woman, if we only have this much bandwidth, 85% of it is consumed by living the religion. And so when the religion collapses, you have this void space. And for many LDS women, they go into the cycle of the ex-LDS world. And it's a lot of emotional duress without the skills to process what's happened, and not knowing that you don't have the skills. So you're using the old operating strategies to try to fix yourself in this new world without the limitations. And so to answer your question, I have found if you notice, I'm like a little dragonfly, big fan here. And so I use the analogy of the emergence of a dragonfly to, first of all, help a person give themselves permission to grow from a little nymph bug in the water to then realizing at some point in their life, in their last transition, that actually I'm an aerial animal and I'm also a land animal, and I breathe oxygen. And I didn't know I had those capacities when I was underwater, my underwater life. And so I go into far detail about this whole transition, and it's really a safe place to help a person understand what they're going through, because it's nature. They don't want to hear another religious strategy. They want it, but nature is not a threat to understand your own emergence. And so I use a dragonfly of first catching a vision. Who is it you want to be, and where do you want to go? And unfortunately, this is the biggest piece for a lot of LDS women who are taught that you should want what God wants, and the church dictates what God wants. And I only want to be in service of the Lord. And in that space, I only basically are saying I only want to be in service of the church and whatever the church tells me to do, because I want to be worthy to live with my family in the next life. And my whole important prime directive is to be a mother and to raise my children. And so for a lot of them, when they leave the religion, they don't even know what they want. So that's our first strategy. It's like, let's figure out, what do you want? And a lot of times we go back to when you were a little girl. Who did you want to be? Did you want to dance? Did you want to sing? Did you want to speak? Did you want to be a mechanic? Did you want to do things that the church really shut you down because it didn't fit within the profile of their constructs of gender? Right. And so we find out what they want and have a vision. And then I use the thorax part of I guess you could show my necklace. I use that as understanding your intuition. And in the church, your intuition is very manipulated. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they teach you to go inward and get answers for yourself. But if you get any answer that extends beyond the periphery of the theology, then you're probably being deceived by Satan. And the only reason you would leave the church is because Satan has got a hold of you. So even though you're at the apex of your intuition telling you you're in the wrong place, the minute you choose to leave the church, you don't trust that intuition anymore. And it collapses, and it has to have a whole new restructuring so that they can start trusting their inner self and just trusting their self, period. Because, you look yourself in that religion, and the further away you get, they're like, I can't believe I believe these things. I can't believe I did all of this. It just looks like, now that I can see, why couldn't I see before? And you feel stupid and you don't trust yourself. So reestablishing that trust self-trust and intuition is a key point. And then teaching them other skills like how to process emotion, how to create boundaries in relationships, which is something we are definitely not taught at church, to have our own voice and to have our own space and our own autonomy even. And so then you have also the ability to focus on your dreams, because unfortunately we usually focus on the ex-LDS world. And so it takes a lot of energy and effort to start focusing on creating your life rather than continue spiraling in this deconstruction path. Right. And so we got focus, the skills, and then the habits, re-identifying the habits so that they align with your vision for your future. And then community is a huge one, where you can surround yourself with people who are in upward motion, who are moving forward and not staying stuck in that victimhood of, this happened to me, I was raised in a cult and I'm so dysfunctional now. Instead of reiterating that story over and over again, now they can get in a community that says you can move forward and you can be whatever you want. And I love to help them find resources. A lot of these women are building businesses. They want to help coach people who are leaving, like me. or they just want to explore their dreams and start moving in a direction that feels more honorable to who they are and what they've always seen for themselves, but has been tucked back in the shadows. So those are the 6 strategies I use: is the vision, intuition, focus, habits, skills, and community.
That's fantastic. And I think, one of the most important things you said is autonomy. Like, are you living with autonomy in your marriage, in your
Mhm.
community, in your church? Do you know what you want, what your plans are for you? Are you spending your life figuring out how to make your husband happy, or how to avoid getting in an argument or a fight, or you know, making sure that you show up to do whatever's expected of you by other people? Like, if that's happening, it's probably a good time to take a step back and really think, like, who am I, and what is my autonomy, and what do I want?
Yes, our environment was very much, it was just submissive. It was, we are
Right,
here to support the men and
right.
help them rise and shine and be wonderful. And we were put in the background. And so to reclaim our autonomy, or even claim our autonomy for the first time, it's very confusing many times, because we feel like if we actually exert our power that is ours to exert, we feel like we're a bitch. And so we use these strategies like passive aggressive and manipulative strategies to get what we want, because we're still humans and we still have needs and wants, but we can't just ask for them.
Wow.
We have to go around all these circles to get what we want, or even feel like we have the right to ask for what it is we need.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is certainly a bigger issue for women than men. Men don't have to face the same type of, I mean, men do have expectations for gender norms, but
Yeah.
theirs is the better expectation. Like, if we women could opt into being expected to be, leaders and free thinkers and people who change the world, like, everyone would be like, yeah, I would like to sign up for that. And so if you are not in a place where people respect you, and you're in a role where you're expected to somehow be submissive or subservient, like, that is wrong. It just
Yes.
is. It's just wrong.
Yes.
There's never, ever, ever a place where it's okay for you as a human to be submissive or subservient to other humans. Like,
Yes.
and as a parent, of course we serve our children, and of course we serve our spouses, but that's got to be mutual.
Yes. Well, and that mutuality, it's something so foreign, because we are taught we are a secondary helpmeet, if you will, is the terminology. But unfortunately,
What did
all
you
of our
say?
approval, what's
Help,
that? Helpmeet?
help meet? What is that?
Helpmeet. That means, well, it's the story of Adam and Eve, and Eve came from the rib as a helpmeet for Adam.
Oh my. I've never
So
heard
yeah, and
that.
in our temple ceremonies, it's structured where you have God speaks to the man, and the woman goes through the man.
Wow.
And so a lot of these things are being called out by people who are leaving the church, and people in the church are starting to understand that the dynamics are not healthy. And
Mhm.
so they're kind of changing a lot of the rhetoric and a lot of the narrative to, like, maybe 2 years ago, they changed where women in the temple did not have to wear veils. They didn't have to veil their faces anymore during the prayer ceremony.
Mhm.
And so it's probably only like 6 years ago that they stopped making women wear dresses to work at the church building. For people who were working in the church environment, they were still requiring them to wear dresses to work every day. And
Yeah.
so little incremental changes makes the women feel, oh, now we're empowered. But once you leave, you realize how much of your own personal authority you have given over to the leaders of the church and your husband, and everybody else has more authority. Even when you have a son, like I have one son, when he was 12, he received the priesthood, and now he was the one that would call on someone to say the prayer. And now the responsibility of the family kind of diverts from me when my husband's gone. Now it's not me in charge, it's my 12-year-old son. that's in charge. So it's just strange dynamics that don't allow us to develop any sovereign authority.
Yeah.
The idea of sovereign authority is so foreign to an LDS woman,
Yeah.
and her being able to get to that space where she can make choices for herself and give herself permission to do anything outside the periphery of that theological structure it's terrifying for her. There is a terror barrier where she has to cross that, hoping that she's going in the right direction.
Sure. I mean, and it's not unlike when you're raised in an Amish community and you leave and you're shunned and you have no resources.
Yes.
So the costs of leaving are big. So people could be listening to this and thinking, well, why would anyone ever tolerate that? You should just leave. But there are costs to leaving. There are costs to leaving your marriage. There's costs to leaving your religion. There's costs to leaving your culture. And in the LDS community specifically, you have to leave all three. But even when you're not LDS, you're leaving a lot of that. So what are some of the benefits that you had to leave behind?
Well, again, the church was my source of approval. That's the place where I express myself. Basically, I'm at home during the week, watching my children, doing the mothering thing. And the only way I can express myself is on Sunday, where I always found myself in teaching positions. And so I would be a speaker. That's who I am a speaker. I am a teacher. That's just my nature. That's the essence of who I am. So it was showing up in the religion, but it was only the religion where I could express it. And so when the religion collapsed, I have nowhere to speak. I have nowhere to express myself. I have nowhere to develop my talents because they were all owned, if you will, by the church. And so now I'm in this place of, how do I engage all of my skills and my passions in a way where they're not going to be told, I'm not told what to do and how to set it all up. It's a huge mystery. If you're raised in a religion like that, how do you know that you're missing that? You have no idea. And so when you leave the church, what do you have to lose? You have to lose your dignity. You have to lose, for many women, they lose the relevance in their community. They lose relationships with their parents, their siblings, and even their adult children. And so what used to be a support system for them, if there was any other kind of crisis, like if your house burned down, or if you went through divorce, or you had a child die, or you were sick or anything, you have a fabulous support group. The religion is there for you. They're bringing casseroles. They're going to take care of you for the month. You're good. But when you have an existential crisis, like you lost your faith and you can no longer figure out how to get your conscience to fit back in there, all that support system is now pushed away, saying you are on the wrong path and we don't agree with you. And not only that, you're dangerous because you might convince me that what you're saying or thinking is true. And so now your support system completely collapses and you become shunned. It's like a covert shunning. It's not like Jehovah's Witnesses where it's overt, where it's woven in their theology that if you leave, Jehovah wants you to stay away from these people. In the LDS religion, it's if these people leave, you just show them the love and allow them to go on their path. But basically, until you leave, you don't realize you are being covertly shunned in every area of your life. And so, yes, you risk relationships, you risk your marriage, all the stability, your vision, your worldview about God and the universe and other people and the wickedness and Satan and all these things are now up for reconciliation and reconsideration.
As you have worked with people that are leaving the religion, are there some who have managed to keep their family relationships intact?
It depends on if the dynamics of the family that they were more evolved. Unfortunately, we're still at this place where emotional acuity and emotional wellness is still new to the table. Many of us are starting to understand the toxic dynamics of relationship and personality, such as the narcissistic empath dynamic. And so in the religion is a narcissistic environment where your needs don't matter, your questions aren't okay. We're not going to talk about the things that need to be talked about because we need to maintain the image at all costs. So we create two personalities, the one inside that we're trying to hide from the rest of the world because it doesn't align with the church, and then the false facade that we bring to the table as a member of the church.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the trick there. I don't know that I answered your question though. Can you repeat that?
Oh, that's okay. That's okay, because I really like what you just said. Many people are becoming much more aware of emotional abuse,
Yeah.
and how toxic it can be. People know about emotional abuse. They know about financial abuse. They certainly know about physical abuse, but not a lot of people know about spiritual abuse.
Yes.
So can you talk for a minute about that?
Yes. That is the deepest part of things, because we are taught even at a very young age. And I know that I'm going to get people that are frustrated with what I'm about to say, but that there needed to be a human sacrifice, a bloody, violent sacrifice, to pay for something that I did or will do in order to bring me back into the presence of my creator. So even then, at that point, spiritually, I feel dirty, fallen, sinful, like God had created this just not perfect human, and then there had to be a bloody death in order to compensate for me to get back. And so it sends a message to the mind that you are born in a very dysfunctional, not even just dysfunctional, but you are a low life, so to speak. And
So,
so
I mean,
that's your spiritual right there.
okay, so you think Christianity as a construct is spiritually abusive?
Yeah, because it required it for some, it's like vicarious payment of sins through someone else,
Mm-hmm.
instead of us being accountable for our own feelings, our own emotion, our own thoughts, and our own actions.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so, depending on whatever Christian faith flavor, if you will, that you buy into, some of them are healthier than others, that Jesus came to just let you know that through grace that you're okay and you're saved and you're okay. But that is not how the Mormon Christian theology goes at all. You have a checklist and you have a covenant path, and if you fall off that path, you risk losing association with God in the next life.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
so
let's go
that's a
back to this
spiritual.
definition of spiritual abuse again. So I think of spiritual abuse as someone holding your salvation over you. And that might be too simplistic, but it seems like you define it as something even broader.
Yeah, it's anything that interrupts your right to have direct connection to divine source, to your
Okay.
own intuition, to your own autonomy, to your own authority. And so in the religion, over and over again, you're to defer to the authority of the bishops, the state
Mhm.
presidents, and unfortunately, their answers are usually try harder, say your prayers, read your scriptures, get to the temple, which are not real world strategies.
Sure. So
We need
submit.
psychological help in rerouting and trauma processing.
Yeah. I mean, basically, when you're told you must submit to the authority of, and that's XYZ, whatever that authority is. Like, yes, we have to do that with our parents. We have to submit to the authority of our parents to a certain extent. Children, have to do that. But once you're an adult, what authority do you need to submit to? You have to follow the law, or there's consequences in the society. But if you have to submit to the authority of a church, you really should think about whether or not you're in a spiritually abusive place. And if you have to submit to the authority of your, parents as an adult, or your spouse, you really should think about, am I being spiritually abused?
Right. And unfortunately for a lot of women, they're having violence, emotional and physical violence in their relationship But so long as the husband shows up in his grand facade and his suit and is able to speak the vernacular and the syntax and to give this impression that, you know, I am a holy man, if that woman goes up into her bishop and expresses the abuse, she's discounted. She's told to live a better life. Many women who are raped, they're blamed for their rape. What were you doing? What were you wearing? How did you entice him? Things like that. Child abuse that's going on, if it's done by a leader in the church, they'll throw it under the rug because the men are supposedly spiritually inspired in who they call. And so if now we call out somebody who is abusive, then that means to the other man that he was in error in calling him into that position in the first place. And so there's a very complex dynamic going on in the religion, and it just because you leave does not mean that you figured it all out. In fact, just leaving alone is like the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got to clean up so that you can grow up and understand what it really feels to tune in and be a spiritual person without all the directives and without all the authority and without all the permission. And so to me, it's kind of like if you have a little child and they don't understand all of the dynamics of the street. And you know, because they don't understand that, you tell your child, you've got to have the hand of an adult before you cross the street. Never cross the street without the hand of an adult. And that rule keeps that child safe. But that rule for a 20-year-old who is now wanting to drive a car and understands drivers and blind spots and pace and the rate of the car and all of those things, they now understand a different perspective of the street. And for LDS people, a lot of times they're still in the street going, I need an adult, I need a hand. Somebody hold my hands because I need to cross the street. And so it's almost like teaching them all the dynamics of this world and letting them carve a place out for themselves so that they can cross whatever road and travel in any space that they want to.
Mm-hmm. So we're almost out of time. This has been a fascinating conversation. How do people find you if they want to work with you?
Sure. My website is wendyjensen.com. On Facebook, I have an empowered former LDS Facebook group, and it's focused on supporting you in moving forward. So it's not one of these that's bashing the church and completely being in that victim space, that we're actually finding strategies to move forward. And I do my own coaching, online coaching. And you can find my book on Amazon, The Healing Questions Guide, and also A Peculiar Transition, Healing the Trauma of Mormon Faith Crisis. Wonderful. Those are both available on Amazon.
Thank you so much for your time, Wendi.
Thank you.